introduction, and I kind of wonder, what is it that make people behave the way they do? We are honing in on this situation, and we're looking at, obviously, for want of a better word, the urinator. I guess that's going to stick with him for life. What's going on here? Why do we suppose that he carried out such a despicable act on a Black student at a higher institution of learning? I kind of always, back in the day, always thought that when you enter the university space, already you have a mindset change, because you've left the schooling system. You are no longer a child. You are now totally, you are totally on your own. You are an adult. You are going to make grown-up decisions, and you're going to make the right choices in the way you interact with those around you to have an absolutely empowering, uplifting experience in a tertiary environment.
Well, look, we bear the marks of our origin, and very clearly the particular student comes from a particular background where he's been socialized, educated, acculturated in a particular way. And that way has been to affirm that all that he sees in himself, the external features of biology, the melanation, if you like, the amount of melanin in your pigmentation, is a virtue, is a major identity and peg that he's going to cling to. We come from a very racist society. Our society remains racist. The previous colonial and apartheid, more recent apartheid system has embedded itself so deeply in.
Okay, Dr. Cooper, you
to make things
all right. You broke up there, but continue.
Yeah, to make things worse, we have perpetuated a racial categorization that eventually came through the colonization as well as apartheid. So what was there pre-1994 has just been taken back into our terminology, and we still use that. We've just been in a census, and we still use that categorization. In all that we do, our history, our education system, there's nothing that's liberating in it. Indeed, our belief systems are stuck in that past.
All right, let's bring in Sifiso Zungu. Have I got that right? He is the Western Cape provincial chairperson of SASCO, which is the South African Students' Congress. Welcome. I'm not sure if you heard my introduction, but you have heard Dr. Saths Cooper's response to this disgusting act by a white pupil on a Black pupil at Stellenbosch University, which I've been doing a bit of reading, suggests that it is an outright racist university, that the Black and white students don't even intermingle. There's just such a great divide, even imagined or unimagined. There's just that divide, and it's not at all a very comfortable space to be in. So, Sifiso, how would you respond to that?
Firstly, thank you very much for having us. I think to touch perhaps from where Prof. Prof. Cooper has mentioned about the history of racism in South Africa. I think I can add to that and say perhaps Stellenbosch University is known from its originality that it was never designed for black people, nor colored people or Indian people. It was just mainly for white people, Stellenbosch University. So it is what is happening today. It gets many white people not even sure where they are in 2022 in terms of racism. Right. So in Stellenbosch University, it's a university that it's within is in a town itself, right? And it's not just a university that is so racist, but the town itself. When you're walking around, you can feel that actually I'm not even in Africa. I'm not belonging to the space. The space is so wide to an extent that as a black person you can feel it. And in a simple way, you know, if you can come to Stellenbosch town at 5 a.m. You just check who's coming in to town at 5 a.m. And you come again later around 5 p.m. Sit again maybe in the street and check who's going out in Stellenbosch at 5 p.m. You will find it's mainly black people who are workers, as cleaners, as gardeners. That's the role when it comes to black people with Stellenbosch University, right? So the space it's so wide to an extent that certain things as a black person is not even easy. And it's not shocking that you can find a first-year student who then can decide to just enter a room of another student and decide to pee on the study text of that particular student. It's simply because now the educational system of South Africa, you know, it's in two ways. You find those who are coming from private education and those who are coming from public schools, right? And those who are coming from a private school in a form of being white, they are coming from very traditional high school that are so Afrikaner, right? When they enter the university, right, I wouldn't necessarily blame it to them, as you have perhaps tried to say that maybe you will assume that when they move from high school to university, they've grown up, they need to understand certain things. But the reality is that many of these kids, especially first-year students who come from these traditional Afrikaner high schools, you find that they still come with certain practice that they learn from those high schools. They come with them in the university space. But where the university is not playing a role is to then try and conscientize this student to say that now we are in a new environment that we call a university, especially in Stellenbosch University, a university that we are saying is so diverse and is so welcoming of our diversity, right? You need to know that there are certain things that you will never be able to say, or there are certain things that you won't be able to do simply because of understanding the environment that you find yourself as a first year in Stellenbosch University. So to a certain extent, yes.
Mm-hmm. So let's ask this question. Do we know what were the events that led up to this event, to this disgusting event happening? And what is happening with the person, the urinator, so to speak? What action is going to be taken against him? And what are the authorities at the university responding regarding this matter? My sense is that he should be dispelled immediately and not allowed entry to any other tertiary institution in the country. An example has to be made, and that is my stance on the matter. So how do you respond to that, Sifiso?
Firstly, the accident happened on Sunday in the early mornings, whereby a white student was, because Stellenbosch it's a town itself, Stellenbosch University. So certain clubs are around the university. Students will go there, have some few things, and come back to the campus. So it was that time where students, they went out, then they came back to the resident. For no absolute reason, then that particular student decided to enter the room of another student and directly go and pee, as the video has been circulating. And what we hear about is how then the emotional intelligence of that particular student, who even took the video of that student, to even ask in that video to say, why are you peeing in my room? How then even you can listen to that, how that student was so calm, because I was imagining that if it was me, I don't think I would have found a time to even ask him, what are you doing this in my room, you know? But for that student, how then he responded so calmly, so asking a question, why are you peeing in my room? And therefore they respond from that particular student to say, yeah, boy. And when we further meet with the student to say what happened, then he says the student, when he was leaving his room, then he said, yeah, this is what white boys do to black boys. And we said, that is blanket racism. We said that this is racism and we cannot be apologetic about it. We're going to take it upon ourselves as students now to make sure that this university, if it's really committed in saying it wants to transform, we are saying, because that rest, another thing is that many accidents of racism, they've been actually happening, right? And the university has something they call quality unit, where they will report the case, then they will take it further to investigation, then there will be results. But many cases who are coming from that rest, since we know that they've been in the investigation processes, even today we don't know many results of those investigations. So students, they decided to say, no, this time around we want to push the university to be firm about the position of saying they are against any forms of oppression, any forms of racism, right? What has happened until far is that the university has suspended the student. Then students themselves, they said they are not, that's not enough. They want to see the student being expelled. Then the student then the one that I can say is a victim. Yesterday, he then opened a criminal case with the police. Then the case has been opened. Then tomorrow, students, they will mobilize themselves again to go and meet with the management to make sure that student is being expelled from the university.
Okay. Let's bring Professor Saths Cooper in here. And I know earlier on, Professor, I made the statement suggesting that when you enter university, I kind of just assume people or young people take responsibility and try and make the right choices. On the other hand, let's just look at the converse situation here. Can we perhaps suggest that this was just a prank that possibly went wrong? He's a young man, he's maybe 18 or 20 years old, and they will carry on pranking, and young people are allowed the space to do it. Never mind, let's just forget how heinous and disgusting this incident was. But I'm now looking at it from another point of view, that at that stage and age of their lives, they would be pranksters and see what they can get away with. And can we give them a second chance at redeeming themselves and putting things right? What would that then look like?
Okay.
And I'm not contradicting myself. Sure. I'm not contradicting. No, I'm just trying to look at it at two different points.
Yeah. Look, first of all, I think that everyone deserves a second chance. I think that everyone has the opportunity to change. However, in the current context, this is a clear violation of all that the country stands for. There's so many infringements of the Bill of Rights against the, I'm going to use the term victim here, against the victim. The incident clearly demonstrates that there was a power play, there was a superior attitude versus you are nothing, you are inferior, and I can do what I like to you. So perhaps we can say that in your moments when you feel you are on social media, I'm speaking to Sifiso and I can just make a comment about Julie and forget that it may be discoverable later. I can be intoxicated and I can say things when my tongue is loose. Now, what psychologists would do is say that reveals the inner self. That reveals the true self of that person. So you're doing in those moments that you would like to use as the excuse to defend yourself what is truly you. A comrade of mine, Mbele Bokwe Mafuna, yesterday said that racism, like respect, is sucked from the breast, not from books or friends. Let that be clear when we rear how you are brought up in your school environment. Sifiso has referred to some of that before you come to the university environment and get a shock that actually you're on the southern tip of Africa, not Europe, not Asia, not Americas, but in Africa. The entitlement mentality that comes with deep-seated racism is at play here. It's also an indictment on all of us that in the in the 28th year of our democracy, we should be hearing and seeing such outrageous behavior. It says that we haven't solidified as a nation. We haven't come to appreciate that we are the same. To use isiZulu, siyafana nje. We are the same. We're made of the same ingredients, the same biology. It's just that external appearances have created the othering and then the colossal denigration of one by the other. The big difference in this country and on the continent, which basically on the continent we don't see it. We see it more in South Africa. The majority is black, but in all other respects, the majority is a minority, economically, culturally, and indeed politically. I think we need to say that. Politically, we have gone back to becoming a minority in the country of our birth, and that needs to change. There hasn't been the clear denunciation by the university in that where this happened. The university needs to look at the enabling environment it created for racism to perpetuate itself and indeed flourish and brandish itself in the kind of ways that the perpetrator has been allowed to do. If the university was the place where human rights was valued, people are valued because you are part of the human family, this incident would not have happened. It is because of the differences, because of the deviation. And I'd like to just point out that Stellenbosch was a gymnasium and got created into a university. The first university, of course, was the South African College. It became UCT. In 1918, just soon after it was created as a university, Wilcox was the first head of psychology. He went on to become the principal of the university. Indeed, the psychology building is called the Wilcox Building. And let me tell you, the kinds of people who came from psychology there are racist to the core. Vervoet, that doyen, was tutored by Wilcox. Okay,
actually,
so
the question that begs to be asked is, I've kind of always wondered, psychologists understanding the human psyche surely are not racist in the least, because they understand who we are, where we come from, what the human mind and the psyche is all about. That they are not, and they would never be racist.
Absolutely.
So I'm totally wrong. Let me just move on to Sifiso. I'm wondering, Sifiso, and I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm wondering if government has failed us because of the years and years and years of non-leadership in the country, the rampant corruption, that politicians have taken their eye off the ball, so to speak, and rather than focusing on these type of issues, which seems to be perpetuating, we no longer have a rainbow nation. It's them and us. It's whites and it's blacks. And you know, do the white people still have the mentality of the swart gevaar? Do you think all of those issues are playing out, and these are the type of acts we see being perpetuated by young people upon young people, and other such heinous crimes that that plays out everywhere? And how and where does the issue of farm killings come into the picture? Are these the discussions around white dinner tables where, you know, you talk about the swart gevaar? Sifiso.
Okay, thank you. Firstly, I want to say that if we can track back the history of protest in Stellenbosch University, you will remember that, if I'm correct, between 2015 and 2016, Stellenbosch University was taken to Parliament. For which reasons? For racism issues, right? For transformation issues, right? It went to Parliament. Government sanctioned the university to Parliament. They committed even to Parliament to make sure that Stellenbosch will therefore focus, or they will pump more money in terms of transforming this university. Fast forward 5 years later or 6 years later, does the government follow up on Stellenbosch University and check how far are they with their transformation agenda? No. The Minister of Higher Education, if he can be sanctioned now and be asked, when did you last check the commitments that you said in 2015 you're going to do in terms of monitoring the Stellenbosch University in terms of transformation? How far are you? How far Stellenbosch has gone from 2015 to 2022? I don't think Minister of Higher Education has an idea around that, right? Because why? Many politicians, the problem that they do, you will hear, let's go around the times of elections in South Africa. That's where you will hear many politicians speaking about Stellenbosch when they are doing their campaign. Stellenbosch is a problem, Stellenbosch is a problem, Stellenbosch is the problem. But you will never find one politician coming here to address those problems in this university. No one. So government, even government itself, is here to be blamed, right? But secondly, Stellenbosch, as Professor said, I think Professor said everything about Stellenbosch University. You know, it's not easy to be black and to be in Stellenbosch University. I'm telling you about the neighboring communities of Stellenbosch, Idarsville, Cluttersville, Kayamandi. All those people who are sitting around here, the only accessing job they have in this university it's being cleaners, it's being gardeners, you know, it's being securities. You will never find someone coming from Kayamandi being in a strategic position within the institution. You will never find someone who's coming from Idarsville being in a strategic position within the institution. You will never find someone who is coming from Cluttersville being in a strategic position within the institution. You go not so long ago to prove that Stellenbosch University is so slow in its transformation agenda, even if they are doing something. Not so long, the university posted on their page on Twitter, speaking about the success of women who are on top management. When we checked that, it was only white women. And when Twitter tried to speak about that, then they removed the tweet and they tried to apologize. And they apologized. It was just an apology to make sure that they protect the reputation of the university. Then that's it. Because there was nothing that was done about that. And now one thing that students have then tried to push, part of their demands, is to say, we want something like a chairperson in Stellenbosch University. We want a commission that is going to investigate the realities of racism in this university, and we want that commission to involve students, to involve staff members, to involve everyone, so that we can deeply go to the roots of racism for this university. We want this university to be declared a racist institution because it's happening every day. And as I have been emphasizing, that the reason that even today we are able to speak like this, we are happy with that boy who was able to take a video and be able to speak up, because many cases, many students, they don't speak. When we met a student and go to admin on Monday, There are many stories that were spoken by students there that are shocking. Even the vice rector of teaching and learning, he was shocked, confused. He didn't have any answers to certain questions that were asked by students because he was shocked about what students are saying to them, what is happening to many black students in this campus or students of color in this university, you know.
Okay, so what you're saying, Sifiso, is that management is not in touch with what's happening on the ground at the university. I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to ask you what sort of action needs to happen. You spoke about TRC at the university. That sounds like a long process which may take a couple of months. We want radical change and we want radical change now. So you're going to respond and tell us what that looks like. Coming back to you, Professor Saths Cooper, let's look at how all of these changes can be implemented. How do we start making people to think differently, to think positively, to think embracement, um, to think that I am in the real world now and my actions are going to have to make a meaningful change. So, again, from the psychological point of view, how do we start shifting our mindsets?
Well, look, I mean, the basic underpinning of that has to be that we need to have an equalized and empowering education, which we don't have in this country. Let's be very clear about it. The wealthy can continue narratives and tropes out there, and it will continue to serve them, because that is why this kind of thing is enabled to perpetuate in wealthier education settings. Our education has been tinkered with. We do not have the kind of affirmative orientation to an education that starts in the kindergarten and takes you through the heights of university. Many of our university campuses just churn out products without the necessary location in terms of the historicity, the meaning of what this means to be a patriot in this country. I should point out that the university has perpetuated some research. The year before last, just at the as COVID lockdown was, we were in that major lockdown. There was an article that was printed in a neuropsychology journal where some lecturers tried to show the inferior and the kind of terrible. I'm not going to repeat the stuff. It was just saying,
please do. Let's get the context.
Colored women basically are not the same as white women, because we as white women, we carry certain better values, etc., etc. And there was intervention from the psychology fraternity in this country and elsewhere, and the article was immediately retracted. But hear this, the university, it took them time to actually come to that place. The National Research Foundation, which funded the research, didn't say a peep about that. So it goes back to what Sifiso is saying, that the people, the policymakers, the politicians, the people who direct things in society are completely oblivious or just simply unable to deal with this. And I want to point out that I've known Reverend Russell Botman, who was the first Black rector of the university. And I'll never forget sitting in his office. I think this was about 2010 or 2011. And we were talking about the issue of council and language policy, etc. Now, Russell is he was born in an Afrikaans setting. He speaks Zeevar Afrikaans and so on. However, Russell affirmed himself very proud Black person. And he said to me, In that council, the attitude is, we control you, it is our money and our reserve, you have reserves because of us. And he said to me, a very striking statement. He said to me, if I don't manage to do it, it's not going to happen. And he died soon thereafter. So basically, we back in it's business as usual. So in the white enclaves, it's okay, chaps, Sifiso, carry on, we're in a democracy now. We can carry on doing what we're doing because we are, onces diselder, but only at a particular level. Otherwise, the difference will perpetuate itself. So we've got a lot of rethinking to do. We need to rethink our entire education pipeline. We're not training appropriately. We're not training for citizenship, for values, to embrace what this country needs. So at all levels, we're simply failing. For Stellenbosch, which is one of the richest universities, to say they will throw money into transformation, and this is the result, it's clear that they've failed. So there needs to be government intervention. Will there be? I don't know whether, the Minister of Education is also a psychologist. Bladin Zamanda is a psychologist. I think we're failing. We're failing. We, the adult, older generation, are failing the Sifisos and the children yet to be born by allowing what is patently an injustice, an injury to the basic humanity of our kids. And that victim, Sifiso pointed out how calm he was. He is the champ. He is the victor here because he showed that he retained his humanity throughout the process, despite the attempt to dehumanize him and everything around him.
Okay, I just want to read something out to you. Someone who's been watching the show has forwarded this on to us, and I find that very, very interesting. Professor Thuli Madonsela is a chair of Social Justice Department at Stellenbosch University. Has she said anything, and what is the students' views about her? I think, Sifiso, you'll be well placed to be answering this question. So let's jump in there with it.
There's nothing that has been said by Prof. Thuli Madonsela. Even yesterday, students in their small gatherings, that's part of the questions they were asking. Why is most students, they will call Prof. Thuli Madonsela Mama Thuli. So they will ask me, why Mama Thuli, she's so quiet? It seems like she's not even around. The whole chairperson of social justice in Stellenbosch University, quiet. So we haven't seen her around. We don't know whether she's around campus or not. And the funny part about this is that yesterday in the dance, but yet there's no full story around it. Just we saw in the news that there was another case of some racist comments that they were made in a dance, and it happened in the law faculty, where you will even find Professor Thuli Madonsela, but everyone in that faculty is currently quiet, not saying anything. So to just be short, Prof. Thuli Madonsela, she hasn't said anything around whatever is happening in Stellenbosch University.
Maybe she's not around, but I'm kind of wondering what are the views of the students, particularly black students, about Professor Thuli Madonsela? Do they feel that she's got their back?
At this moment, they don't feel that. At this moment, they don't at all. Realizing the fact that she's the chairperson of social justice in this university. By the time this thing that finds its expression on social media, you will have expected a very active person like Prof. Thuli Madonsela on social media, especially on Twitter. You will expect that at least she will make even a line, one single line, just to comment about what's happening. But there's nothing up to until this day. I think we on the fourth day, the case has happened in the university. She hasn't said anything.
Okay, guys, I've got about 8 minutes left to wrap up on the show. Let me ask both of you, and you can then respond from your point of view. We see this white supremacist thinking playing out all around the world. We just need to look at what's happening in the United States, the killing of Black people at a supermarket. And of course, a couple of years ago, the Floyd situation, just the way white cops deal with Black supposed criminals or Black people if they have broken some form of rule or the other, even if they were speeding slightly over the speeding limit. We do know that they are dealt with in a very heavy-handed manner. Do you believe that because of these type of white supremacist tendencies from other parts of the world, that it's giving traction to the white minority in South Africa? And again, I bring in the question of die swart gevaar. Sifiso, please respond.
I didn't hear when you ended. Can you please repeat at your end? I didn't hear you. You did cut there.
Okay. That the white minority in the country feel very fragile and feel that they are possibly the soft targets, and if they don't defend themselves and possibly stand up for themselves, they will be overtaken in whatever form or way by die swart gevaar.
Okay, my primary view is that South Africa as a country is a racist country. That's the point of departure I think that I have, is that South Africa, even the settlement of 1994, didn't do enough to eradicate colonialism and apartheid, because there are still elements. In a town like Stellenbosch University, that's where you see that, because I think even in South Africa, Stellenbosch is one of the unequal society that it's alive. The inequalities that are within Stellenbosch University, Stellenbosch as a town, or Stellenbosch as a city, you will see how unequal South Africa is, right? And racism is at the center of everything. Whiteness in Stellenbosch, it's at the highest level, right? And it's so difficult that even now, for an example, many students are protesting in Stellenbosch University, speaking against racism, and you go and check who's forming part of those protests. It's mainly Black students. You'll find colored students, you'll find Indian students, you'll find Black students. That's the three groups that you'll find. We are in a university that is predominated by white students, but you will never find them in our protests. And those are part of the things that we are saying, how are they going to learn? Because we believe that if I have a white progressive fellow around me, or in res is my housemate or whatever, we want people who are willing to unlearn and learn. Right? It cannot be correct that such cases of racism are happening in 2022. In 2022 in South Africa.
As the Western Cape provincial chairperson of SASCO, what changes do you want to see? We know that they won't necessarily happen overnight, but obviously you want to see some meaningful change happening right now. What would it look like?
Okay, like all universities in our country, Stellenbosch University is a national asset. And for that reason, among others, it should ensure that its reputation and legitimacy is not compromised on the acts of racism. One thing that we are pushing is to say, as an organization, is to say, yes, my residency, it must be renamed as a form to say now, we are changing this university. To want to see a transformed Stellenbosch University. We are saying we are going to begin with yes, my race to rename that race. Secondly, we are saying, as much as we know that to create a commission, something like can serve as a chairperson in Stellenbosch. It could take us some time, but we believe it's one thing that we need in this university, because we believe this university must be declared a racist institution, right? So through that commission, we believe that it will go through the process of investigating racism in Stellenbosch University, and recommendation therefore be made by that commission. So that's what we want to push the university to say, let's agree, let's all come together and participate in this commission. So those are two things that we want, but not shying away that we still want to see that student being expelled from the university.
Absolutely. Professor Saths Cooper, final words from you.
Look, there was a commission already that the current minister had a while ago, which Crane Sudin, who was at UCT then and ended up being HSRC president, CEO, did on racism in our higher education institutions. It simply means that government has done nothing about it. So we've got the policies, we've got the law, the policymakers need to operationalize the policy and not wait for anything else. Everything is there. If we go into any, there must be a clear investigation, and that investigation must be done not merely as a university thing. I think there needs to be a criminal investigation as well, because there's criminal liability, and an external look at it in terms of what is enabling such things to happen in the second oldest university in the country, and probably the richest university in the country. Why is that happening? And what should change in our education system to make sure that from the kindergarten we grow South African children, irrespective of color, irrespective of belief, irrespective of any other thing, that accept that all are the same humanity. We're part of the same human family. So I think that it's about time that the people empowered and paid and elected to do this do their jobs. If they do their jobs, we wouldn't have our young students and leaders like Sifiso having to step into the foray. They should be expressing themselves at university, contesting ideas, not become havens for bigotry and chauvinism. And you get entities like AfriForum entering the scene and saying the display of the old flag is
oh yes,
all that kind of thing. So
I covered that last week.
Yeah. So it's the same mentality. It's a racist country, and we need to get rid of it.
Professor Saths Cooper and Sifiso Zungu, thank you indeed for your insights on this matter. We will obviously follow it very closely and hopefully chat with you guys again sometime in the future, just to see if there's been any progress that has been made. And if there is no progress in the matter, we together need to hold the authorities accountable. Go well, God bless, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you very much for having us. Bye.
8:50 exactly, news and views right here on Salam Media. My name is Julie Ali. Please keep me company and let's have your views on the WhatsApp line, which is 0617660355, or any one of our social media platforms. Would love to hear your thinking on this issue and any other issue playing out as we speak on the show this morning.